Here's one of my favorite books. It's called The Keeping Quilt by Patricia Polacco. She's one of my favorite authors. Here's the title page, and here's a boat full of people. And if you'll see, there's only one red illustration. That's our main character. And they're coming into New York Harbor, coming to America through Ellis Island. And here are the people. And here we go. When Great-Grandma Anna came to America, she wore the same thick overcoat and big boots she had worn for farm work. But her family weren't dirt farmers anymore. In New York City, her father's work was hauling things on a wagon, and the rest of the family made artificial flowers all day. Everyone was in a hurry, and it was so crowded, not like in back home Russia, but all the same, it was their home, and most of their neighbors were just like them. New to America. Immigrants. When Anna went to school, English sounded to her like pebbles dropping into shallow water. Shh, shh, shh. In 6 months, she was speaking English. Her parents almost never learned to, so she spoke English for them, too. The only thing she had left of back home Russia were her dress and the babushka that she liked to throw up in the air when she was dancing. And her dress was getting too small. After her mother had sewn her a new one, she took her old dress and babushka. Then, from a basket of old clothes, she took Uncle Vladimir's shirt, Aunt Havela's nightdress, and an apron of Aunt Natasha's. "We will make a quilt to help us always remember home," Anna's mother said. "It will be like having the family in back home Russia dance around us at night." And there we are, the ancestors all dancing around as they're getting ready to make this beautiful quilt. Oh, and here they are making it. This is called a quilting bee. And so it was. Anna's mother invited all the neighborhood ladies. They cut out animals and flowers from the scraps of clothing and kept the needles. Anna kept the needles threaded and handed them to the ladies as they needed them. The border of the quilt was made of Anna's babushka. The border goes all the way around the edge. Oh. On Friday nights, Anna's mother would say the prayers that started the Sabbath. The family ate challah and chicken soup, and the quilt was the tablecloth. Anna grew up and fell in love with Great-Grandpa Sasha. To show he wanted to be her husband, he gave Anna a gold coin, a dried flower, and a piece of rock salt, all tied into a linen handkerchief. The gold was for wealth, the flower for love, and the salt so their lives would always have flavor. She accepted the hanky, and they were engaged. A hanky is the shortened version of the word handkerchief. Oh, I wonder what's going on here. Under the wedding huppah, Anna and Sasha promised each other love and understanding. After the wedding, the men and the women celebrated separately. That was their tradition. When Grandma Carly was born, Anna wrapped her daughter in the quilt to welcome her warmly into the world. Carly was given a gift of gold, flour, salt, and bread. Gold, so she would never know poverty. A flower, so she would always know love. Salt, so her life would always have flavor. And bread, so that she would never know hunger. There's the new little baby. Look what they're hanging on the clothesline. Carly learned to keep the Sabbath and to cook and clean and do washing. Married you'll be someday, Anna told Carly. And, oh, looky here. Looks like another wedding. Again, the quilt became a wedding hoopah, this time for Carly's wedding and Grandpa George. Men and women celebrated together, but they still did not dance together. In Carly's wedding bouquet was a gold coin, bread, and salt. I think you know why now. Carly and George moved to a farm in Michigan, and Great-Grandma Anna came to live with them. The quilt once again wrapped a new little girl, Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen called Anna Lady Grandma. She had grown very old and was sick a lot of the time. The quilt kept her legs warm. On Anna's 98th birthday, the cake was a kulik, a rich cake with raisins and candied fruit in it. Sounds like a fruit cake. When Great-Grandma Anna died, prayers were said to lift her soul to heaven. My mother, Mary Ellen, was now grown up. When Mary Ellen left home, she took the quilt with her. When she became a bride, the quilt became her hoopah. For the first time, friends who were not Jews came to the wedding. My mother wore a suit, but in her bouquet were gold, bread, and salt. The quilt welcomed me, Patricia, into the world. Hey, the author is Patricia Polacco, and this is a true story about the quilt handed down in her family. It was the tablecloth for my first birthday party. There she is as a little girl. At night, I would trace my fingers around the edges of each animal on the quilt before I went to sleep, and I told my mother stories about the animals on the quilt. She told me whose sleeve had made the horse, and whose apron had made the chicken, and whose dress had made the flowers, and whose babushka went around the edge of the quilt. The quilt was a pretend cape when I was in the bull ring, and sometimes a tent in the steaming Amazon jungle. See, Patricia has a wonderful imagination. That's probably why she became an author. At my wedding to Enzo Mario, men and women danced together. In my bouquet were gold, bread, and salt, and a sprinkle of wine, so I would always know laughter. "20 years ago, I held Tracy Denise in the quilt for the first time. Someday, she too will leave home, and she will take the quilt with her." I think I saw somewhere that the Keeping Quilt kept on going and that we find out what Denise did with the quilt. We might have to look online if we might want to find what happened next. But what a wonderful story, one of my favorites. I hope you enjoyed it. The Keeping Quilt by Patricia Polacco.